Thank you very much for joining us on today's episode of Pass the Cheese. Today we have Chantal. Welcome. Hello.
Hey Jackie, thanks for having me.
Of course. I love talking to friends. Yeah, if friends want to come on this, let me know because I like talking to friends. Who doesn't, right?
It's the best. It's what we have right now.
I know. It is very much like the one thing that we have. And, you know, it's something that I've realized and, kind of makes me like, doesn't help with the depression that's like already settling in with everything. And it kind of applies to California, but I will say that it applies significantly less to Minnesota. But the one thing has made this whole pandemic bearable is being able to be outside and see friends. And we are now in November at the time of filming, and it's not really very nice to be outside right now for extended periods of time. So yeah, it's starting to get real, and we're at the beginning stages of about to be back in that second lockdown. So yeah.
It's so tough. And it's like so cold there right now too, right? Like, wasn't it snowing like a couple weeks ago?
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah.
weather talk, but
What's really funny is so we had snow in October before Halloween, which was like a little like that's a little crazy for Minnesota. Normally we can get through October without that. But then 2 weeks ago at the time of filming, we had 70 degrees. Actually, on the day that Biden was announced the presidency, that weekend was like 70 and 75, like that Saturday and Sunday. And so it was great. Like I walked to the lakes nearby me and I just sat outside and read, and like people were just driving by the lakes, like honking and cheering and like had signs and everything. And so anytime someone would come by, I'd be like, "Wow!" It's a lot of fun.
that's so heartening. I love that, like that mood that day. Like here too, like just people shouting and screaming and just like all of that, like such a release. Like that's wow. And the weather too. Like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, after snow. What is
Yeah.
happening?
Yeah, well, don't worry. Now we're back to 30 degrees. So, don't worry.
Oh no.
Yeah. It's, I only have myself to blame. I've chosen this life. So here we are.
Well, on the like good side, you have actual seasons, not just like cloudy and slightly colder and a light sprinkle and sometimes sunshine.
It is funny with people that I follow on social media, friends back in California. Now they're posting fall pics. And I'm like, oh, yes, I remember a month and a half ago when we went through these leave changes.
Minnesota's on the cutting edge of
We're just
everything.
trendsetters. What was really funny is we'll move on from Minnesota really quickly, but when I was telling people that I was moving to Minnesota, there were so many people that found and just kind of like all over. Obviously, there were people in my life who knew this, but it wasn't people necessarily that I spoke to every single day. Of course, you get stuff from like your parents and your family, but there'd be people that would find articles that was like Minnesota is like really up and coming with millennials, and like Minnesota is the highest for this, and they'd be like, "Wow, Minnesota is really great." I'm like, "Haha, yes, come with me," but I've not managed to trick anyone to move out here yet. So.
Well, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Not yet. I mean, you're there. That's like reasons number 1 through 3,
Oh,
like
you're
to
so
move
kind,
there.
so wonderful. Well, this is something like I've been thinking about because I have my two segments. One of them being Pass the Cheese, where I compliment the guest, and we've known each other for 12 years. We met
I
in
think
high
so.
school. I'm doing really
Right.
quick math right now. I probably should have prepped for this before. Whoops, my bad, y'all. Um, we've known each other for a significant amount of time, and we've had this relationship that is changed and grown and evolved, and so thinking about things that I love about you and things that I appreciate about you, which are so many, but you've always been this cheerleader for everyone, and it's not necessarily these huge like, and I don't mean this like in a negative way at all, but
Oh,
it's not these like huge declarations of like, oh, you're great and like what you're doing is amazing. But you are like, if you ever want to talk to you about anything, you're just like, I love that. That's great. Like you're so responsible, you're so respectful, you're so innovative, like all these things. It's just like, Thank you so much. Like, it's so wonderful. So thank you for doing that. I love it.
Oh my God, you're trying to make me cry at like the very beginning of the episode
Yes.
and see what happens after.
Well,
Because
as
that's
somebody who
so nice.
tries both, like everything, both happy, sad, and anything in between. If I can get somebody else crying, because that it'll also make me cry. But like, that's great.
Oh, that is so kind of you to say. I mean, like, I think part of it is that like you obviously, but like people like in my circle, like I totally believe in and like
Yeah.
I just yeah, I don't know. It's like easy when like that sounds so I
No,
don't know.
I
Just
totally,
like
I totally get that. You
it's
keep good
easy.
company, is what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, and well, I mean, like, what I love about you is that, like, on top of being like so funny, like legitimately funny, not in a way where I'm like, oh yeah, like you're my friend, so you're funny, and like you're actually really funny
Thank you
and
very
kind.
much.
I mean, just I don't know, like growing up with you, just like how I so appreciate like just your kindness and also like how well you like communicate like your strong opinions, which I love, like as someone that's like really needs a lot of work on that. Like it's been so inspiring to just see you like just really grow into yourself and like communicating that with the world. Like
Thank
I mean,
you.
yeah. I just
That's really wonderful to hear. So often I hear kind of the opposite of that, because I, surprised, have always been someone who's very opinionated and is really unafraid to make those opinions known. And for a very long time, the world kind of told me, you're too much, you're too loud, sit down. And I really struggle with that, and yeah, and so that's really wonderful to hear the other side of that, and I don't want to be a white woman who like sees themselves in a black woman. I'm like, oh, I can totally relate. But Michelle Obama said this, and that really resonated with me, and I really, like appreciate it. Where she's like, I decided I wasn't bossy. I decided I was strong. And I decided I wasn't loud. I decided I had something to say, and I still am, figuring that out and struggling with that, and that's something I don't want to say like I hope, but like I think that is a good struggle to have, to know, kind of when to stand up, when to sit down, or I shouldn't say sit down, but when kind of stand back, and when to kind of let someone else have the floor. And yeah, and especially now as somebody who is trying to be anti-racist and is a white woman and has some of the tendencies and stereotypes around white women, and I have done problematic things, I have said problematic things, I have you know I have had behaviors that I are not good, and so I'm still learning and figuring that out. And so anyone who's willing to have a conversation with me about that, I really appreciate, as long as it's a conversation, and as long as it's not you're wrong, you're bad, shut up, sit down, I hate you kind of thing, because I can have a conversation with someone that I don't agree with, and we can walk away totally fine. Somebody who's very passionate, sometimes that's a little bit harder for me. But there are a lot of things that I want to know why, and this is something I was kind of thinking about when we were talking about the Biden Harris win, and maybe this is for me like our whine about it, the next segment. 55% of white women voted for 45, and 70 million people voted for him. And for me, I want to know why, and I want to know why more from a curiosity standpoint, because obviously there's a spectrum, there's a scale, and some people skew more heavily and more highly, but I want to know why, because for me, racism isn't a discussion. I don't know if you just heard Ellie, but Ellie is awake.
she agrees. She's like,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, thanks, Ellie. Thank you. Um, Racism is not a debate. There can be conversations about it, and you know, hopefully they skew more towards anti-racism behaviors and ways that we can be better and do things better. But you know, to say that there are what was it? Good people on every side with the white supremacists march in Charlotte, North Carolina. I don't agree with that, and why is that okay? And racism is just a very small topic and things that I disagree with our current government, and you know, it goes from there. But for me, that is one of the more egregious. So yeah, I'm interested in why.
That is so, like, heartening to hear, like, I mean, not from you specifically, because 'cause you've always been, like, someone that's, like, a champion of, like,
Thank you.
understanding and, like, anti-racism and everything like that, like, and yeah, I think that's totally, like, what the issue was before. I mean, for many, like, for so long, but just, like, understanding, like, where those people are coming from or, like, being open to even having those conversations, because otherwise we just get further and further entrenched.
Yeah,
Not that, like, you're
no.
empathizing with them or anything like that, but, like, yeah, that's, like, totally the first step to kind of, like, dismantling this, like, awful situation that we got
And I'm
ourselves
not here to
into.
pretend that I'm the best person or most qualified to have these conversations, but I am truly interested, and and I also can get very passionate, and so I recognize that, but I don't want to have a yelling match. But oh shoot, I was going to say something and I just lost it. Oh, so I will say this, I for a very long time, what's the best way to say this? I don't think that racism and racist actions, micro and macro aggressions, are new. They have been happening for hundreds of years. I think that in a way, our current administration, one positive is now a lot more of us, myself included, are more awake and are more activated and are more aware of things that are happening. It's like when you pick up the rock and all the bugs scuttle. They've always been there. We've just picked up the rock and now we're seeing it all happen. And so we are seeing small but big changes, like Kansas City, or not Kansas City, I shouldn't say that because there's two Kansas cities, but I think it's Kansas just elected their first Native American representative. We have the first transgender person elected. We have the first two openly gay Black men that have been elected in these states. I don't remember every single state, so I don't want to say and be wrong and mistaken. Well, we have these huge monumental things that have happened, and these people that represent these ideas that are more modern and more updated. And it's not just older white men making decisions for people who are not older white men. And that's incredible, and that's wonderful, and that is a huge step in the right direction. So that is good, and that is helpful, and hopefully people from these communities will now have somebody who lives in that community, knows what happens in that community, is represents that community and can help to make change in those communities. Obviously it's early days, and things happen, but yeah. And so like, with the rock metaphor, the bugs are
I
everywhere. Now we have different bugs and new bugs, and hopefully bugs that are less less corrupt and less,
right.
you know, not caring about the constituents and people they're supposed to represent. Because little reminder, they're supposed to represent us.
Absolutely. That's so well put. Like, I love that metaphor of like the bugs were always there because they are. And like, you're so right too. Like, representation is a huge issue. Like, and it's like those positions being elected that are more representative of like what the people actually want to see is such a great like track. Like, I can only see it snowballing, but like know that like there's a ton of work that goes into like pushing that forward, like, and I think like this is something that you've like talked about too, where it's just like the work isn't done, but like it's like people are more awake to that, like,
Yeah.
and know that that work is still needs to happen, but it'll be easier, like, because so many more people are awake right
Yeah.
now.
I'm also, I have to say, I'm a little bit hesitant to use the phrase awake because there is that,
Oh,
you
woke.
know, the
Yes.
switch to the woke, and then, you know, a lot of people, you know, are like, oh, I donated to this bail fund. I'm woke. I'm done. Racism is over. It's canceled. Like, good job, you know. And so, or there's people that are over woke, you know, and you know, get offended on behalf of things, you know, and you know, so yeah, so there is still a process that goes along with it. And please know, I'm well, I shouldn't say I'm always, but I'm mostly including myself in these things because just a couple of weeks ago, I saw this I saw this article, and the headline was Nicole Byer deserves an Emmy because she's cute, and I did exactly what a lot of us do. And I just read the article and I tweeted and I was like, on behalf of her, and I was like, Nicole Byer deserves an Emmy because of this and because of this, and she's also cute. And then the next day I saw that Nicole Byer, she did not respond to me, which is exactly what should have happened. Like I did not deserve to be acknowledged in that moment. But she tweeted like, hey, I talked to this person in here and like, and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, so if I had read the article, I would have known that Nicole Byer was the one who said, I deserve an Emmy because I'm cute. And I was like, too spicy. Pump the brakes, Jackie. Pump the brakes.
I mean, like, we've all been there. Like, I think I have seen that before and was like, oh, like, yes, like very similar thoughts. And then like I listened to like her podcast. I was like, oh, I see. Like I did not read the whole thing either.
Right.
Yeah, but I could totally see her saying that too. Like
Yeah. And you know, being 12 hours away from it, I was like, yep, this is 100% something that Nicole would have ever said. So yeah, you know, sometimes let's pump the brakes before it get a little bit too spicy. Let's just keep that in mind.
and also keeping in mind she does deserve an Emmy.
Yes, yeah.
She's great. But yeah.
Something that also like, and I hope this isn't like a too spicy hot take, but you know, and I know that I'm not the first person to say this, and I'm sure that people can say it better, but it seems that a lot of times people who create media are unwilling to like like there are people that are in media and they're always the same people. Like we have like a one black man actor and he's always the one black guy in every show or movie or you know whatever. And you know people think like we're done, we did it, we got this black guy. And I don't want to say that the people aren't talented and they don't deserve these roles, but there's such a wider pool, you know, of people to pull from. And also if this person is great, there's probably somebody else that's really great. And so maybe instead of just one black person or one Asian person like in the show, you know, like let's bring a couple more on, you know. And I was talking with a couple friends about this a couple weeks ago, and you know, she was like, you know, I was realizing because she has some friends who are trans, and you know, when she, you know, kind of when they have that discussion of like, this is, you know, who I am, and I can't speak to the extent of that was, you know, she was like, yeah, it just wasn't a big deal to me. And we were like, yeah, you know, and it's one of those like silly moments where you're like, it's almost like representation matters. Like when people see like different people and different lifestyles and different things about them, like they become okay with it and they become introduced to things. And I don't know. We need to do more of that, y'all.
That is so true. Like, I completely agree. And like that also speaks to like what kinds of stories are being told, not just like, oh, here's like an empowering story. These are the only narratives that are available to them that media is ready for. And it's like, no, they're like everybody's experiences are just as rich and like nuanced as like a white perspective or like whatever like Hollywood or media has like approved. And so like yeah, definitely
also,
still
it's
oh, go
also
ahead.
really interesting. So I came up with this idea for Hari Kondabolu. he has this, and he's fairly famous in a lot of ways, but one thing that a lot of people know him from is he has this documentary about how Apu from The Simpsons is really harmful and, really, really not great. And that goes for a lot of BIPOCs. Like, we have a person of color, and that, like, we're like, oh, this is how I know them, and this is who they are, and that's kind of it, and done. And also, the fact that a white man voiced him. So that's something that goes with that too. Um,
Fun. Just kidding. No,
but
not fun.
um, but he pointed out this thing where he's like, I can't remember what interview I was listening to, but he's like, we have told like stories about these white people that are the same but slightly different for years, and yet we're so unwilling to stretch that to people of color. We're like, oh, these are the 3 or 4 narratives that you fit, and that's all we're going to do. And like, it's a little bit embarrassing that I'm like, it took someone when I was like 27 to point that out to me, but like, that is totally true. And also, like, that's because that's what was told to me, of just like, this is okay and this is, whatever. So yeah, like, I guess more of the story, representation matters. Why do we keep doing this?
Absolutely. Like, and it's like that, like, just having those conversations, like, wherever that takes place, like, I think is so generative. Like, I mean, people should be doing the work on their own, yes, like, for
Yeah.
sure, but, like, yeah, just, like, keep pushing the envelope in any capacity that you have, like, that's all that, like, that's the first step. Yeah.
And I want to make one more point, and it probably pushes past our time, which is like, what else is new? But we should kind of wind down after this. But I want to make sure that I have appropriate time. But I've noticed something, myself included, but other people, and especially, like the wider everyone, like, there are conversations that we will have about BIPOCs, or people, I should say, like, people who aren't straight cisgendered people. And we're like, oh, like, I really love this movie, but like, oh, this person's voice is like really annoying. Or like, oh, like, I really like this, but this facial, like, I just can't get over this facial expression. Or like, somebody in the media who is, different, they say something that we don't necessarily agree with, and we're like, ah, can you believe that person over there? And I've noticed for everyone who isn't, cisgendered straight white people, we, like, all of those things are true for cisgendered straight white people, but we keep letting it happen, and we're so unwilling to be like, "Ugh, well, this Black woman, like, her voice is really annoying, so like, I don't want to listen to that anymore." When like, I can think of like so many people over here whose voices are annoying, or like
Right.
problematic, or like say something that you don't agree with, and there's so many people over here to do that thing, and we just give it a pass, and things will get canceled for no reason, because they're like, oh, well, the numbers aren't great. And I'm like, I can tell you, like, there is a certain male comedian who regularly makes terrible movies, and they just get on platforms, and they're not good. And like, and we just let this happen, and you're just like, what? Yeah. And I like, it's really interesting of how we're not willing to extend the grace to somebody who's a little bit different. And it also feels very much of like, well, we tried, we let you, but like, we didn't like this one thing, so like, please go sit over here now. And I don't like that.
No, it's such an insidious way for, like, racism or any kind of ism to, like, show their face, where it's just like, "Oh, well, I subjectively don't like it." Like,
Mhm.
that's not good enough. Why don't you like it?
Mhm.
Like, take that extra step to be like, "Oh, maybe it's because of this effed up thing, like, I grew up thinking, and, like, that's just a trait I don't like." Like, it's such an easy out. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's fine to not like things, but, like, to do the deep work of, like, why don't you like it really? Like,
And
I
why
don't
is
know.
it okay over here but not over here?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Being
Yeah.
consistent.
Yeah. Um, and so this has been kind of on my mind because I was reading about the whole the time of the filming. Sia has a new
Oh,
movie called Music, I think, and it has a neurotypical person cast as an autistic character, um, and so this is kind of on my mind. And I don't want to speak about that, like you know, but this is a plea that I've made in the past, and I did have a friend, thank you, Kevin, who reached out and gave me a little bit more information about this. But if there's any way that I can make whatever I'm doing, both on my social media and here, more accessible for people who are vision impaired or hearing impaired or something else that I'm not considering, please let me know. I would love to talk about that. I have an email set up and I can't quite remember it. A couple of weeks ago, I tried to plug the social media for this project and I got it all wrong. And so I will put it in the episode, or like in the description. I think that it's passthewineandcheese@gmail.com. I think that's my thing. But my social media is also pass_the_cheese that you can reach me and talk to me about that. I appreciate any information. But let's also wrap this down because I know that we've gone long. Is there anything that you want to bring awareness to, or anything that you want to talk about?
Sure. Just really quickly,
Yeah.
at the time of filming, yesterday was the Transgender Day of Awareness, and
Mhm.
so, that's just one day, and so just, like, encouraging people to research and do the work and about how they can best show up and be an ally for the transgender and LGBTQIA+ communities.
Mhm.
Um, Such important work and definitely communities that we want to support.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is I don't want to like say that this is like if you do this it's all saved, but an easy way to do the inclusion for people who are listening and watching is start including your pronouns and stuff. Email signatures on your social media. Even if you're doing video conferencing, you can put it right after your name. There's an easy way to do that. Your professional profiles, I've started putting it on resumes. Like I don't know if this is a perfect system, but this is just another way. And also, you know, um, it's like an easy way to know without asking. Like we're all nosy people, and if you see someone and you're like, I don't quite know, this is something that if we start normalizing this, like this can, be a part of it. Because for a very long time, I was like, oh, I'm not a part of this community. This is something that's special to their community. I don't want to, like, I don't want to like wave a flag that isn't mine, kind of thing. I want to support it, but I don't want to take away from anything. Excuse me, cracker
Yeah.
just went down my throat. Whoops. But it's that I was wrong in that thinking. We want to normalize it and we want to make these people feel appreciated and welcome just as much as we are. So yeah, that's a great one. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for taking the time to sit with us and talk to us and all the education you gave us. Ooh,
I also received it. So
so thank you.
thank you so much for having me. This was great. I learned a lot too.
Yeah. Okay, bye.
Bye.